What's going on, guys? Welcome to TGW 97 and welcome back to Tech Deals as well. We're just sorry for the short delay there. We were just sorting out a webcam issue, but well, we didn't really get it fixed, but it's working anyway. Hopefully for next week.
The Zoom on my webcam is not cooperating. Thanks, Microsoft.
Yeah, it was like weird. Like as soon as we would start up the Skype call, it would be cropped the way that he usually has it set, but then as soon as he would like click on his browser, it would like just go away. Was that what's happening? You were clicking on the browser?
Yeah, if you clicked on anything else, it was fine when I first went in, but I couldn't touch the computer.
Ah, yeah, that sucks. I feel like I've been dealing with issues through Skype now for weeks, like with the audio being out of sync, and then this. It all kind of happened with Windows 10 Creators Update. Are you on the Creator Update by chance?
Of course.
I'm actually not on this machine. I've blockaded every time they put that stupid pop-up up about my privacy settings. I'm just like, no, remind me later. Way later. And I saw Jerry had did a video about the ransomware and stuff, so I made sure to update all of my virus definitions with Windows. But I've done everything except the Creator Update. But that ransomware thing was pretty scary. That after watching this video.
Yes. The sad reality is you're now stuck between a rock and a hard place. On one hand, if you let Windows Update always run, you may wake up one day and your computer acts funny and it breaks something. On the other hand, if you don't update your computer, you may not have any of your files. Great. What are you supposed to do? Microsoft, at the end of the day, Microsoft, in my opinion, needs to completely separate security updates from feature updates and make them toggleable so you can toggle off feature updates but have security updates on. Because the fact is Microsoft plugged the ransomware hole that was exploited 3 months ago, and computers that were fully patched didn't get it. But because Microsoft has abused the trust of Windows Update by pushing out stuff that isn't security updates, there's a lot of people who have just turned it off.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Actually, that's a really good idea, because I just use Windows Defender, as I haven't found a reason to use anything beyond Windows Defender and common sense. So if they could just push out the security updates through Windows Defender, I think that would be a lot more convenient than having all this other stuff get bundled in with it. Because the other stuff is what usually breaks things, at least for me.
Well, feature updates like the Creators Update should be something that you can do at your leisure when you're ready for it.
No, they shove that thing down your throat, man. Like every day I get at least 2 pop-ups a day asking me to check into my privacy settings. It's very annoying.
I actually like Windows in many ways, and I know that's almost, heresy for a tech person to say.
I do too.
But Microsoft's not making it easy.
No, I know exactly what you mean. I actually love Windows. I find it's very easy to use. I've been using it since I was like, I don't know how old, like since like 93, 94, for a long time. Over 20 years I've been using Windows operating system. So yeah, I'm very attached to it. I would hate it to have to, learn a new OS and do any kind of change like that, but yeah, the privacy stuff and the way they've gone over the past few years has been not good. Like you said, it's hard to love them, even though the operating system... I think what it is just familiarity with the operating system. It's so familiar that we've become kind of comfortable to it.
Well, there's that, and there's the fact that if I were to switch to Linux tomorrow, half of the programs I use don't work, yeah. And it's easy to say... Look, Linux is a great operating system. Any Linux fans out there, take no offense to this, because I totally get the technical benefits and the openness and the fact that you control your system.
I like that aspect.
I think that Windows, at least Windows 10 Pro, see, this is how they could get people to buy Pro. Windows 10 Home, lockdown, no control. Windows 10 Pro, it's your computer. Do what you want. I have a lot of time and energy invested in things like Adobe Premiere Pro and Adobe Photoshop, and there aren't Linux versions of those. And to say, well, Linux is great, there's alternatives, it's not the same.
No, it's not the same, and especially when it comes to an editing software that you're using to make a living, and the amount of time you'd have to invest into learning a new software, even if it was just as robust as Photoshop or as Premiere, you'd still have to learn the programs, because they do have their differences.
Well, look at your situation with Sony Vegas. I mean, you have a workflow. You can just sit down and make a video.
Effortlessly.
Switching operating, the cost, even if the new operating system was $100, the cost is not the issue. It's the learning time.
Yeah, and having to get over any hurdles like that, and I have quite a few friends that use Linux exclusively, and they're always, I said to one time I was like, why don't you come on TeamSpeak? And they're like, oh, I don't feel like coding tonight. I was like, what do you mean? Like, oh, I'm gonna have to like figure out, how to make it work on my version of Linux and all this stuff. And I'm just like, okay, how about you just download Windows then? It probably seems a little easier sometimes, but yeah, I understand why Linux has its fans. I personally, I love the open source stuff. That's why I use like Firefox. I like having the customizability of Firefox versus Chrome. So I kind of, between the browsers, I kind of look at Chrome as like the Windows of browsers, and Firefox is like the Linux, where it's a completely open platform and everything. So I'm all for that. It's just can't learn a new OS right now.
One of the things we talked about last week was the fact that GeForce Experience is now going to be fully supporting Vulkan and OpenGL. And I think one of the things that really holds a lot of people back from moving to Linux is the fact that your games don't run on Linux. I mean, yes, I know a few do, but let's be honest. I mean, the big ones don't.
It's a very small percentage of the Steam library. Like if you go on Steam and just if you're searching like all games and you just hit the drop down for only like Linux and Mac games, like you can bundle them all onto one page.
Well, the big titles. I mean, there's lots of little indie stuff that plays and older things that play. Yeah. It's like the experience I had with Mac. Last summer, I tested a Mac Mini, and I wanted to see what would work on it. And I was genuinely surprised at what percentage of my Steam library, when I loaded Steam on it, had a Mac version. But if you actually look at the list, like a third of my entire Steam library had a Mac version. But it's all indie stuff and 5-year-old games. Mm-hmm. It's nothing recent.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to do anything cutting edge, any new games coming out, benchmarking, and even if you could, how relatable would it be to people that are probably running Windows systems?
Well, and even if you could play the new stuff, what Mac hardware would you play it on?
Hey, what's their highest end NVIDIA GPU? What do they have? I think they have a 980, right?
Yeah, don't even start. I would love Linux. Linux, unfortunately, is not going to take over the desktop market, no matter how much, it's the year of Linux. Yeah, I've been hearing that since, the mid 90s. Mac could do it. OS 10 could do it, but they would have to either license it or they would have to think about this for a minute. Sony, I'm pretty sure Sony Vegas has a Mac version. I know Adobe has Mac versions, and there's Mac versions of a lot of the stuff, Office and other things that we use. If they would just sell OS 10 for $100, I'll bet you an awful lot of Windows 10 users would go out and buy a copy.
Yeah, I would definitely give it a whirl on a proper computer, one that I built myself, basically.
Yeah, if you could install it on your own machine, and there's only one version of OS 10 to support, which means that you get NVIDIA drivers and AMD drivers and hardware drivers, and then Adobe and other companies would make sure their software's up to date. Well, Adobe already is because Mac, but I think you would quickly find AAA game titles would be ported over, because if Vulkan and OpenGL work over there, wow, all of a sudden here's 100 million new people running OS 10. Quick, let's get our games over there, because these are enthusiasts.
Yeah.
Apple, free advice. I only want 1%.
Just 1%, is that it?
1% of $1 billion is a lot of money. I think Apple could sell $1 billion worth of OS 10 to system builders.
Probably. So before we get into the first topic, we usually do a little bit of a show and tell. This week I just have my RX 560 that I tested this past week. Pretty good little card. I was actually really happy with it. It's like around $100. This one is the 4GB card. These ones are actually $115. Although in none of the emails leading up to my video of this did it say $115. They just said $99. So in the video I kept saying $99, $99. And then I can't even find it on Amazon right now. It's only on Newegg. I can't even find any 560s on Amazon.
There's only 4 of them on Newegg. They're all about $115.
The 2GB version of this is $99. The 2GB version.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Is it in stock, though?
The 2GB one was not, but the 4GB one was.
Exactly. Here's the problem. The RX 460 is $70 on Newegg after mail-in rebate right now. You tell me what's a better deal, the RX 460 for $70 or what you have there for $100 or $115.
Yeah, and then I mean, we had a topic later on with the RX 560, but we'll probably just get everything in now with this, because I probably won't have anything else to add to it. But yeah, and then to add on to what you're saying there, then you've also got the 1050 Ti on Nvidia side, which when I was doing my review for this, getting everything together, it was $140, so it was $40 more, but it was like, I don't know, like 10 to 15% faster. Usually in benchmarks, it's quite a bit faster. But now you find those for 115. Yes.
I was just about to say there's 1050 Ti's for 115 after mail-in rebate on Newegg right now.
Yep.
Probably on Amazon as well. Yeah. AMD prices. Do we have an article about? We don't, do we? AMD prices have gone up since launch. The RX 470s, the RX 570s and 580s have gone up by like $20 a card since launch.
I wouldn't be surprised. That doesn't really surprise me, at least with Amazon, because of the limited availability. Has it done that with Newegg as well?
Yeah. Wow. The cheapest RX 580 8 gig card right now is $240, and it was $220 at launch, and that's for a stock clock base card. That's not a factory overclock card. The factory overclock cards now run up to $300.
Oh, Tech Deals just cut out. Hopefully Tech Deals is still with us. Make sure it's not my internet. Nope, my internet's still working. I think we just lost Tech Deals. Oh well, I don't know what happened with Tech Deals, but it looks like, oh, there we go. He's gone completely now. Shoot. Close that. Hey, what happened?
Well, hang on.
Now you're zoomed all the way in on your microphone.
Yeah. I know.
That's a really nice XLR cable you've got there.
What happened?
I don't know. You just froze up on your end, and I was just, I checked. I was like, I loaded up Twitter. I was like, okay, it's not my internet. You just froze up, and now you're back.
Does it not like me today?
I don't know, man. You're having some issues on your end. And I'm getting that thing up at the top now with the call quality info.
I know, and here's the issue. I don't have... Nothing's going on my network. I'm not using anything.
Me either. I've got absolutely nothing open. Like, nothing at all. It's like I'll close down, like, stuff that should not have an internet connection, but I'll close it down anyway.
Welcome to the internet. I apologize, man.
Welcome to Windows 10 Creator Update.
It worked fine last week. It's worked for the past month.
You've been on Creator Update for the last month?
Yeah, I'm a dirty, rotten scoundrel. I just update my machines when they come out.
Yeah.
I live dangerously.
Someone pointed out, though, at least our audio is now in sync.
Is it?
Apparently, yeah. You do look really in sync now, like very in sync.
In any case, what I was trying to say, I don't know where I was cut off. All I was saying is, don't pay more than $250 for an RX 580 8 gig card, because the 1070s are getting too close in price to that.
Yeah, yeah. But I guess we started out talking about the 560. I mean, I was pretty pleased with the performance that I got on the 560. It is a good performer on its own at that price point, but it doesn't look as good when you look at the cards around it, like you're saying there. You could find the 1050 Ti's for like $115 now after Nvidia dropped the price on that. You've got the 460. So yeah, there's cards all around it that are, you know, a good reason to either save or spend a little bit more. But overall, I was pleased with it. Just in general, if you're looking to go for an AMD card specifically, like maybe you want to get a cheap FreeSync display, that's something you couldn't do with a 1050 Ti. And for every esports game I played, it was over 100 FPS. Like Overwatch, Dota 2, CSGO, all that stuff was over 100 FPS, so no issues playing that. I think it's a good affordable card. I was happy with it.
Well, another consideration is we always talk about prices here in the U.S., but I'm sure you have viewers around the world, and if somebody lives in another country where the pricing is differential,
sure.
Maybe where they live, there's a $50 price difference and the AMD is cheaper, all that does is confirm, yeah, go ahead and buy that because they're close enough, it doesn't matter. You know, buy the one that costs less wherever you live.
Oh yes, many people told me about that around the time the 1060 and the 480 came out, when they were very close. You know, they, the 480 was better in like DX12 titles, the 1060 was better in DX11, and people were like, "Well, I'd like to get the DX11 the 1060, but it's actually more money in my area by like a lot. Like in different countries, it's more than like $50 to $100 more than the 480, so or vice versa. So you don't have much of a choice."
And of course, from time to time, each company comes out with different game bundles. Although they don't usually do game bundles with the cheap cards, although AMD does it more often than NVIDIA does. And so sometimes buy the card based upon what freebies they're tossing in, because especially for a $100 graphics card, that might be a big percentage of the price.
So that was my tech pickup slash share for the week. What did you have to show people? Cooler Master Liquid Pro 280. I love their naming scheme. They just put the word master in every word, no matter what.
They're the master.
The Cooler Master Liquid Master 280 Master Flow.
This is heavy.
Does it have Master Flow technology on that Master Cooler?
Does it have what?
Does it have Master Flow technology on that Master Cooler that pumps the Master Liquid?
No, unfortunately it doesn't. It has Flow Op. It allows the flow of heat and carried. Yeah, it's a bunch of marketing text. That is going on. For anybody who's watched my game performance videos on my i7 7700K, you know that I've had heat issues. I've got a 120 millimeter thick liquid cooler, a Corsair H80i V2 on there, and the temps are ridiculous at 5 gigahertz, so I slowed it down to 4.7. My goal with that is to get a solid 5.0 without thermal issues on my 7700K, and I'll do a video comparing temps before and after between a less expensive, although not by much actually, that Corsair. What's nice about that is that's $99. $99 for a 280 millimeter high-end liquid cooler is a really good price, because Corsair's H80i right now I think is $130.
And that's just basically an Ace Attack.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's be honest. What does Corsair make? You know, I mean, I own a lot of Corsair stuff, but they don't make their own power supplies. They don't make their own coolers. They don't make
much of anything. Cases?
I don't think they, well, yeah, but they don't have a case manufacturing facility. Those are made for them by somebody in China.
Yeah, probably. But this cooler, though, is actually very good. The Cooler Master, when I tested this out when it first came out, like in November or December, really good cooler. I put an Amazon link down below for this. It's $100. When I was searching it up for the show, I saw they had the 240 millimeter one also on sale on Amazon. That one's only $90. So I mean, you got to decide whether that's worth the extra $10 for you, if you got a case big enough for it or not. They got both on sale. I was actually just talking to Tech Deals about this before the show. I was like wondering how much of a difference there would be between a 280 mil and a 240 millimeter cooler. That could be a future testing video.
You know, to be honest with you, that's when I put that in. That's actually probably a good opportunity. I'm just thinking about the extra work involved. Yeah, woe is me. Well, the thing is I have a Master Liquid 240, but it's on my Ryzen 7 right now.
Yeah.
And taking it off of that to put it on the i7 to do a 120 versus 240 versus 280 cooler comparison. But let's be honest, that would be a good video. So
it would be a good video. And
yeah, okay.
If I had the 240 version of this right now, that would be tomorrow's video. So I think it would be a good video. I would definitely watch it.
You talked me into it.
You better beat me to it, otherwise I'm going to make that video.
Go for it, man.
I might be a ways off. I would wait until another company came out with a cooler and they had a 280 and a 240, and I would say send me both. That's what I'll be waiting on. Or I could probably email Corsair. Just do the video.
All I can say now, I can't tell you my experiences with this yet because I haven't used it. But I will tell you that the 240 millimeter Master Liquid Cooler on my Ryzen 7 keeps temperatures well in check. My overclocking ability on that chip is not at all thermal limited. It's all just chip and voltage limitations. If I was willing to give it 1.45 volts, I'm sure I could get 4.0 or even 4.1 out of it. But I'm not willing to do that because I want the chip to last a long time. But the temps are like, What's that thing running at? 40, mid 40s. It's not at all at 3.8. The temps are silly. In fact, the 240 is probably overkill at that. I mean, a 212 Evo would be enough. So.
All right, I think we've gone long enough on this intro. We do want to get into the first topic here for AMD, but I did miss a question that came into the chat with a donation from Nelly D. Racer. He said, will you be reviewing the GT 1030? I hadn't really made plans to, but I'm curious about it, and they are affordable enough, so even if I can't get one sent out, I was thinking about picking one up just to do a video to say, what can a card for this price actually do here on, modern titles, and how would it perform in a pretty affordable PC, so... It's a possibility, but I don't have any plans to for sure just yet because I don't have one.
Just to follow up on that comment, the 730, I actually did a video on the 730 and even the 710, the previous ones, the GT 730 and 710. And the reason I did it was actually in response to Linus Tech Tips video, which is this card is junk, nobody should buy it, which both Linus and Luke did on basically cheap graphics cards. And their approach was basically that integrated graphics is now as good as this, and that's true. The Intel HD 530 and 630 in modern Skylake and Kaby Lake chips is roughly about as good in terms of frame rate as the GT 730 is, and the AMD R7 240 by comparison. But here's the flip side. That assumes you have a brand new machine.
Yeah,
if you
most
have
people buying those probably don't have brand new machines.
I'm sorry?
I was to say, most people buying those cards probably don't have brand new machines.
Well, and therein lies the thing. What if you have a 6-year-old Sandy Bridge machine? The integrated graphics in those are atrocious. And so you can put a $30 or $40 or $50 graphics card into a several-year-old machine, and boom, suddenly now you can play League of Legends at 100 frames a second. You can now play Overwatch at somewhat decent performance. But those cards are now getting old. So if the GTs... Here's my question. Would the GT 730... be able to play Heroes of the Storm we know it's going to play League of Legends, Heroes of the Storm, Overwatch, etc. at medium to high detail at 1080p? If it'll do that, they'll sell tons of them.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, you can get those, like, I remember Wendell did those repurposed PCs, like with the i5 2500s in them, and I think he paid like 10 or $20 per PC or something like that, like dirt cheap. And they repurposed them. Something like that would be perfect, like a 1030, because as far as I know, I don't think they require a power connector, so you can get power right from the PCIe slot. Just throw it in, you're good to go.
The flip side to the 1030 is your first topic, which is Vega.
Yeah, the first topic, which is Vega. That got unveiled yesterday. AMD held their financial analyst day, and I really was not expecting them to do a big Vega reveal. Honestly, this event really wasn't on my horizon at all because I didn't get any emails from AMD saying it was coming up. I know you were saying it was the same for you. So AMD likes to stay very, very quiet until these events actually occur. And then you find everything out and you're like, oh, then you're going to go race. And I thought about doing a video, but I was just like, I'll just wait for TGW today. Otherwise, I'm going to steal all of the show's juice. We got to have juice. So, yeah, Raja showed off the Radeon Vega Frontier Edition. I guess we'll start off there with that naming. How'd you like that? It just ripped right out of the Founders Edition. It's like, I feel like they're just pissing on NVIDIA at that point.
I personally think it's a mistake because first of all, I don't think Founders Edition is seen as a good thing by tech enthusiasts.
No, it's not.
And in fact, I think Founders Edition has the connotation of overpriced and slow relative to the aftermarket cards, even though, at least from my own testing, there is not as much difference as people like to make out between Founders and aftermarket. There is a difference, but it's not the end of the world.
Temperatures and noise. It's basically the only difference.
Yeah, temps and noise are the big difference, not performance. And if I don't care about noise, then you can make a Founders Edition run just as fast as the aftermarket cards, so long as you don't have to listen to it. But regarding Vega, this is clearly a professional level card. This is to compete with the high-end multi-$1,000 cards that NVIDIA sells, but that's a good thing. AMD needs that revenue in order to compete. NVIDIA makes a fortune selling high-end cards to professional users who pay thousands and thousands of dollars. So if AMD can come out with a 16-gigabyte HBM2 card that will sell into the multiple thousands of dollars, that gives them the revenue. to give us awesome cards for $500.
Yeah, and that's what they're saying. This is going to compete with the P100. My initial reaction was I was just like, oh, they're doing a Titan X thing where like Nvidia does, where they say, oh, this isn't actually a gaming product, even though it's totally a gaming product. Because I feel like if this card comes out with these specs that it is, and let's say, and if it launched for $1,000, I bet you dollars to donuts there would be a lot of gamers going out and buying these cards. If this was out like a couple months before Vega and these were only $1,000, then people would go buy them, I think, just like Titan X's. If they plan to do like only just a slight, maybe a slightly lower version for, whatever the launch price is, around $599 that it's rumored to be at on the top end SKU. But if they were basically doing a Titan X here and this was $1,000, do you think a lot of people would pick it up?
Yes, but I don't think it's going to be 1,000. I think it's going to be more than that.
Yeah, I think that's probably the direction it's going to go to. But that was my initial instinct was like, oh, this is going to be like a Titan X.
It has 16 gigs of HBM2. That's actually expensive to make.
Yeah, no, it's very expensive. But I think a lot of people are expecting to see that on their their $599 cards. I think some people think that's going to happen still.
I think 8 gigs of HBM2 might happen next year. There's a reason why Fury and Fury X had 4 gigs of HBM2 and we never got an 8 gig version. HBM1. And there's a reason why those cards were discontinued and everything new is using... HBM2 is expensive to implement, and it's nice, but...
Yeah,
let me put it this way. If this card comes out at $1,500, there are people who will buy it. But how much faster is it going to be than 1080 Ti in gaming? Because AMD has been known for a long time to have more teraflops in terms of raw compute performance. I mean, the Fury X has great raw compute performance, and even back in the old days when it was like the R9 290 and the R9 390X, for example, had more teraflops, I believe, than a 980 or 980 Ti, but the 980 Ti played games faster. Mm-hmm. So I don't know.
Yeah, they didn't show too much, unfortunately, in terms of performance. They showed a benchmark from Deep Bench that showed it beating out the NVIDIA P100. They did show a few seconds, like not even 30 seconds, of Sniper Elite 4 running in 4K, and it was always getting over 60 FPS. But they didn't say, what settings they were using or anything like that. I would have to assume they're probably running on Ultra, but what form of anti-aliasing? I mean, if we knew the exact settings they were using, I could go on my 1080 or my 1080 Ti and I could go run that test and say, well, this is getting that, so it's better.
It's telling that they didn't, and anybody sitting here watching this right now going, well, I'm not going to buy anything just yet because I'm going to wait for Vega. If you don't mind waiting, if your setup works fine, that's fine. But if you're on the fence thinking, do I go buy that $330 1070? Do I buy a 1080 Ti? Let me offer you this thought. In January, when AMD was getting Ryzen ready, when they came out with benchmarks, they were pretty specific. We're running on this hardware with these settings. Here's the Cinebench results. Here's the handbrake encode. Here's the settings we're running at. This was vague as vague could be.
Almost Vega.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. So here's the deal.
Yeah,
this high-end professional card is supposed to be launching in late June. Consumer cards, July-ish. That's 2 months away, maybe. But the problem is they had Vega cards running months ago, but they haven't been able to make it work for whatever reason. Vega is way late. Vega was supposed to be done already.
Yeah.
They had at CES working Vega Silicon.
They had them in December at that behind closed door event where they showed Doom. It's just I think they're just I think they're waiting for the HBM2.
People got to see the actual card running at CES in public.
Yeah, yeah.
And here we are in May, and it's not ready. Is it because it doesn't hold up in gaming? Is it because the production process yields are too low? Is it because they're having problems with drivers? Or is it because if they're really going to launch consumer cards in 2 months, the silicon has to be done.
Yeah.
And the fact that we didn't get any gaming benchmarks, the fact that we didn't get any specifics tells me it's not done. Keep in mind that when they have to, I mean, to anybody watching this thinking that they go, okay, the silicon's done, we're going to launch next week. This stuff has to be, Ryzen was in mass production in December. It took them 3 months to produce enough CPUs to launch in March. If they're launching in July with consumer Vega cards, they have to be producing them already. They're not, or they would have said, They're.
I don't think they're ready to ship it. And in my opinion, I mean, there's a lot of things to consider there, but I think it's coming down to HBM2. I mean, it's been pointing to that for a long time as to why we haven't seen HBM2 cards yet, why they didn't have an answer to 1080 and 1080 Ti at launch. I don't really think it was by design. I think it was because of the HBM limitations. And
They married themselves. Yeah,
we've seen NVIDIA pivot from that twice now. They were going to do they did DDR5X. Now it looks like they're lining up DDR6 for Volta, for consumer cards anyway. I just don't think the HBM2 yields are anywhere where they need them to be at a consumer-friendly price anyway.
Well, Fury and Fury X came out for $500 and $600 with 4 gigs of HBM. And it's entirely possible AMD never made any money on those cards because of the cost to produce them. And while they were incredible bargains last year, and at this point, I wish I'd picked one up when they were $260 on Newegg. It didn't occur to me to buy one at the time. You can't get one for even that price used today, and they just discontinued them and said goodbye. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, but what do you think about the cooler design? I remember there some of the original images just showed it looked kind of similar to this, although it was silver with like red accents. So this might not be too far off from the final consumer design. Maybe just a different color scheme there. It's not, in my opinion, not the most attractive looking card.
It's fine if it's for professional users who need something that just works. I mean,
yeah.
It would be interesting if they made the shroud all out of metal rather than plastic, although you can't tell from the pictures.
Yeah, in the renders, they look like they're brushed aluminum, but when he was holding it, it was plastic. And then they've also got the one here that's got water cooling on it that I forgot to mention also, which I think is going to be interesting if that's for server use, to have a water cooler. That looks like it's more consumer type of card to have a water cooler on it.
We'll just have to see. All I'll say is that if you're on the fence and you're wondering, hey, should I wait for Vega? Is it coming out this month? Is it coming out next month? I wouldn't hold your breath.
Yeah, I would basically say by the end of summer. I would expect Vega to be here for the 2017 holiday gaming season, as I call it, when we get the big rush of AAA titles from September to the end of November, basically. So I'm sure they'll be here for that.
And to anybody thinking I'm hating on AMD here, I'm not. I just want to be absolutely clear that I'm rooting for them to come out with a great card and drive down, because NVIDIA basically owns the top-end space, and anything above a 1070 is expensive. I want them to be forced to drive prices down, but they have to come out with a card to buy before they can do that. So,
yeah.
I love Ryzen because of the value for the money. If they would come out with a graphics card that had Ryzen-level value, I'm there.
Because they've got Ryzen, they've got FreeSync, which just beats the pants off anything NVIDIA can do for pricing on G-Sync monitors.
Absolutely.
G-Sync monitors are through the roof.
There's actually LG has they've got a deal today on Newegg, a 34-inch 1440p ultra widescreen 21:9 1440p native 100 hertz refresh rate FreeSync monitor, $799. I know $800 for a monitor sounds expensive, but 100 hertz 34-inch ultra wide that's actually a good price, because the G-Sync versions of those screens are $1,200.
Yeah, $1,300.
So for $800, that's a deal. But here's the problem: what graphics card that has FreeSync are you going to drive a 5 million pixel display at 100 frames per second?
Yeah, and therein lies the problem. I've been saying this for weeks now. I've got a 3840 by 1600 monitor sitting here with FreeSync, and I can't really use the FreeSync on it unless I put in my RX 480. Because
but a 480 can't drive that.
just the desktop. Basically, just the desktop, or I have to lower the resolution on everything. Or play with temporal filtering on like Rainbow Six Siege, which is like the only title that'll run at native resolution with temporal filtering on. So.
Or play Black Ops 3.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think the 480 is actually really good with a 1440, 144 hertz screen, because, I mean, I don't have any issues with that resolution in that card. It's actually a very good 1440p card as long as you play games at high. And if you got a FreeSync display, then forget about it. And there's plenty of them for $400 and even less than that. Continuing on, though, with more Vega and AMD talk, there was a rumor this week. This was all initially perpetuated, that's the one, by Anthony over at Tweaktown, who said that he had reliable sources that said there was going to be 3 different Vega GPUs, the Vega Core, which would be the bottom end competing with the 1070, and that was going to be $399, and then there was going to be, I'm sorry, the rumor for the names came from Tweaktown. The rumors for the pricing came from Segment Next, who kind of just added on to that. So combining all of that, we've got the Vega Core, which is, like I said, competes with the 1070 for $399. And then we've got the Vega Eclipse, which is going to compete with the 1080 for $499. And then the high-end SKU would be Vega Nova, competing with 1080 Ti for $599. But that's all rumor. Take that with a grain of salt as far as the pricing and the naming is concerned on those, because those are just complete rumor that so far have only been cited as inside AMD sources.
Do I even need to say anything about those names?
They're all very planetary.
What a way to confuse the customer. What is better?
Yeah.
Nova or Eclipse?
Yeah, you have no way of knowing, actually. That's a very good point.
580 is better than 570 because the number's bigger.
Yep. Even
1080 is better than 1070. The numbers, I mean, okay.
Even Fury and Fury X, you can kind of decipher
the
that.
X means it's more. Yeah,
the X means it's better.
No. Okay. AMD RX Vega 590, 595, whatever. Come on. See, that was the problem with Fury. What's better? An AMD R9 390 or an AMD R9 Fury? What? The Furies, were they better or worse? Or how about this? What's better? An R9 390 with 8 gigs of VRAM or an R9 Fury X with 4? But the Fury X costs more, but it has less VRAM.
Yeah, as far as this story is concerned, like I said, complete rumor. I'm a fan of the pricing, and if these cards can actually compete with all 3 of those GPUs, then that's going to be great for AMD at those price points, but I don't like the naming, if that holds true.
The top-end card at $599 would be competitive if the performance is there. The $399 would not be. That would have to be $299. I mean, as I said, there's 1070s below $350 now. In fact, in the past 3 weeks, there's been 2 different cards. It's gone now, I'm sorry, but Amazon had the superclocked EVGA 1070 for $336 2 weeks ago for like 5 days. I tweeted about it like every day it was up. And the funny thing is, what happens is that deal goes away because people assume, I'll get that some other time. And now it's back up to like 370 or 380. And then somebody tweeted to me going, dude, what happened to the price? It went up. And I'm like, that's why you have to buy it when it's cheap.
That's why they call it a deal. It wouldn't be a deal if it was always that price. God.
You know, whenever something is cheap, grab it.
Yep. All right, so last piece of AMD news. Speaking of naming for products, what do you think about THREADRIPPER? I mean,
I actually like that.
That is pretty fucking metal. Like, honestly, like I want to call it THREADRIPPER, but that's just me. A THREADRIPPER is good too. I like both. Ripping and I'm just gonna stop there. So 16 cores, 32 threads, and an HEDT. This is for high-end desktops. This is not like for servers. This is going to be for desktops.
How much would you pay for that if you were in the market for one?
What they're worth and what I would. I mean, I don't think I'd spend more than like $500 or $600 on a CPU usually. But I'm guessing these will be around $1,000, if not more. If they try to continue the trend of what they did with Ryzen 7 competing with Intel's X99 parts, then I have to assume that they're going to do the same here and try to beat out the 6900K, which is like $1,800, by undercutting that by a significant margin. So if it's double the cores and thread counts of Ryzen 1800X, then it should be $1,000 about.
If they sell this for $999, they will sell a bunch of them, assuming that it goes in reasonably priced boards, assuming it's unlocked, and assuming that its out-of-the-box clock speeds are not atrocious. You can actually buy 16-core chips, server chips from Intel for a semi-reasonable price, but the clock speeds are so low as to be next to useless.
Yeah, they're down like near 2 gigahertz.
Yeah, I mean, well, they're not useless. I mean, they're useful for a data center in a certain market, but they wouldn't be useful to us. If we can get one of these running at 3.5 gigahertz, then that just changes. That's impressive. But the reality is the number of people who need 16 cores are... I mean, I love having 8 cores. You love having 8 cores. We see the difference. I've lately been recommending the R5 1600 as being the value option for 220 because 6 cores, 12 threads is honestly enough for the average person. The extra $100 to get 2 more cores, I mean, if you have the money, do it. But what would the average person today in 2017 do with 16 cores?
I mean, it's for a specific market, just like any 16-core CPU, I would imagine. It's going to be for enthusiasts. It's going to be for people that want to run multiple VMs, people that want to edit videos and do content creation. I think for those people, it's going to be very good. Well, maybe not so much people on Adobe.
Which is horribly optimized, by the way. For anybody wondering, Adobe Media Encoder is not optimized to use N cores. Throwing 44 cores at Adobe Premiere does not scale the way Sony Vegas and Handbrake and everybody else on Earth does. Adobe needs to get their act together.
Do you see how fast he reacted when I brought that up with Adobe? Because anyone that uses Adobe Premiere will know that pain of seeing cores and just sitting there being unused. There's a reason that Dimitri from Hardware Canucks uses a 4-core Intel CPU in his main rendering machine, and it's... Well, now he actually uses, I think he uses Final Cut now. I think he might have switched, or maybe just temporarily. I think he went back to Adobe. But he still uses a 4-core system to do it, because there's no reason to go any more than that.
There is one small advantage to having Adobe not use all those processors.
What's that?
I can render video and still use my computer and play games.
Yeah, you told me about that. That sounds like a pretty good use, actually.
I can be rendering a 4K video for YouTube while playing Ghost Recon Wildlands at 4K, and the system is snappy as ever. That's basically an R7 essentially is 2 i7s glued together, which is kind of cool. You get 2 computers for the price of one.
Mm-hmm. To continue on with this story, that wasn't the only CPU that they announced, although that is the only really consumer one that's going to be for high-end desktops that you'll be able to pick up on Amazon or whatever. The other one is the EPYC one, spelled EPYC. So apparently they still don't know where the letter I is on their keyboard. Just like so, they're going with the EPYC platform. This is going to be more for servers where you'll have 2 sockets. So it'll be like a dual Xeon motherboard. You'll have dual EPYC CPUs. And they showed these CPUs on stage. They're like really wide. They were big beefy suckers, and those are going to be 32-core SoCs. So they won't need any extra graphics or anything like that. This was previously actually known as Naples. So previously what we knew as Naples is now known as EPYC, EPYC. I don't like that name.
EPYC is cool, and this is important. If you're watching this going, why do I care about 32-core server chips? I'm just a consumer. 10 to 15 years ago, AMD was actually really big in the data center with their Opteron chips. And at the time, they were beating Intel in many regards in the server because the server versions of the Pentium 4s were hot and slow compared to the server versions of Athlon at the time. And there was an awful lot of data centers that took a look at them and went, whoa, these Opteron chips just crush what Intel offers. Well, we all know what happened after that. They didn't keep up, and then the data centers have all switched to Intel, and Intel has been raking in billions of dollars in profits from data center sales. If AMD can get some big data center wins, if they can get these 32 core processors, which they can sell for thousands and thousands of dollars each, this will give AMD the money in order to develop more stuff for us. AMD has been operating on a shoestring budget, and their whole company's net worth is like smaller than Intel's R&D budget. So AMD badly needs the money, and we as consumers should all want them to get that money so that we have healthy competition. Because, you know, as one of your upcoming articles talks about the rumors with the Intel chips, Intel's going to have to respond at some point. Same thing with NVIDIA. We want Vega to do well because that's better for all of us.
Yeah, and we can transition right into that because we've got the leaks here. There was it was like they were doing like a show or something like that. Show they had like a slide deck, kind of like the AMD one we saw earlier, which usually goes out before a product will launch, and you get to see, you know, all the specs and everything. And this is showing that they're going to have the i9s actually now. So it looks like they're changing it up where they're going to have an i9 series on their, you know, kind of extreme edition processors. And then they'll have lower i7s as well. I remember seeing those be rumored, those KB Lake X ones with the 4-core 8 threads and the 4-core 4 threads. I remember talking about those a few months back with, I think it was Steve over Gamers Nexus. But now they're going to have the i9 7800 and the 7900 series. So the i9 7800X would be the 6-core 12-threaded part. So that would replace like the 6800K, 5820K, stuff like that. And those are all going to be X parts now. Whereas they will have X99 also, or whatever they're calling X299, 4-core 8-threaded and 4-core 4-threaded parts, which don't make a whole lot of sense to me.
No, and frankly, even the 6-core, the 6-core chip here should be in the consumer platform, and 8-core should be the minimum on this, quite frankly, but that's neither here nor there. The 12-core 14-thread chip sounds interesting right up until we have a 32-core Ryzen, a 16-core Ryzen chip, and then
for probably half the price.
Threadripper.
Yeah, and then the price on this thing, unless Intel actually wants to admit that they've learned from their mistakes and not compete with AMD and just kind of hold headstrong, then the price I have to assume will be around $1,700.
That's silly.
Because it's not worth it.
No, it's silly. I don't have any words to describe the absurdity of selling the 7950X at $1,700 with 10 cores and 20 threads at this point. Intel famously doesn't lower prices. Intel famously holds headstrong because they're the big, huge company and they don't have to. But, come on. Even they can't take that seriously. I can't imagine that privately they're not sitting here going, oh, what are we going to do about this?
Yeah, I don't see too many people, honestly, picking up these CPUs unless they come out with some type of technology they've been sitting on forever and they just blow everyone away, which I doubt it because it's still just Kaby Lake and Skylake with more cores. It's not going to be anything amazing.
But I'm happy to change my tune if we're surprised by the pricing. If the pricing turns out to be... And Intel doesn't have to match AMD's pricing. They just have to be in the ballpark. If the 8-core 16-thread 7820X ends up being $600, $500, they'll sell them. If the 10-core chip ends up being $700, okay. If the 12-core chip is $1,000, which is what I thought the 10-core Broadwell E was going to be, this wouldn't be so bad. I know those prices sound ridiculous, but at least they're somewhere in the realm of
reality.
Not crazy.
Yeah, and then also, I didn't even think about this before, but is the clock speeds on these. The 7900X and the 7820X are both turbo clocking to 4.3 gigahertz, and with turbo clock 3.0, it'll be 4.5 gigahertz. So if you can get one of these 10 cores, 8 cores, 12 cores, well, at least the 10 core and the 8 core, and you can get them up to 4.5 gigahertz on all cores with a manual OC, or maybe even a touch higher, that's pretty fast for that many cores. That Ryzen cannot do right now.
No, it can't, which is why Intel doesn't have to match AMD's prices. They just have to be reasonable. But how much more money is it worth it to go from 4.0 to 4.5?
It's a hefty margin. I mean, you're looking at probably like 12.5% performance, somewhere in there, 10 to 12%.
But is it worth paying triple the price?
Not triple, no.
For the price of the current 10-core Intel chip for $1,700, you can build an entire Ryzen 7 computer.
Yep.
The whole computer, including 1080 graphics card and RAM and SSD and case and power supply, you can build a whole computer.
That'd actually be a really nice visual aid for a video.
Here's a whole computer. Here's the chip.
Exactly.
The
yeah.
chip cost more.
Like here's this chip and here's this computer. The only difference, what do they have in common? The price. They both cost $1,700. This is not a deal. That needs to be your video. I could start scripting these for you anytime. You just send the check my way. All right, so now getting into a couple of gaming stories, and before switching over to talking about hackers. Denuvo, once again, looks like they have cracked Prey in less than 10 days, about the same time it took to do Mass Effect Andromeda. So what I'm curious now to see is if this will impact performance. I remember when this happened with Doom, like a year ago, that it actually got a jump in performance, and Bethesda had pulled the DRM for the Denuvo DRM almost immediately afterwards. And yeah, so I'll be interested to see if they do that with Prey now, or try to double down like EA did with Mass Effect. I actually had the idea of maybe just downloading the pirated version of this, since I own the game anyway. I don't think there's any legal issues with that, is there? If you own the game, is there anything wrong with pirating a game you own and paid for?
Morally or legally?
Legally. I don't care about morals. I'm just kidding. Kidding.
I won't let you watch my children now.
I'm just joking. No, but no, legally speaking, mostly.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't. Here's what I know. DRM is stupid.
I agree.
DRM, in all respects, are stupid, and unfortunately, the DRM companies have sold executives who don't know what they're doing. Look, a number of years ago, iTunes ruled the roost when it came to music sales. And there was DRM on Apple's proprietary music format, and it accomplished nothing because people could just burn to a CD and then rip the CD out, which was stupid. And at some point, they removed DRM from music, and it affected sales about zero. And people still buy music, and people still download music, and between streaming and music sales and streaming revenues, I don't see any artists starving.
No.
All the DRM does is piss off paying customers. I am absolutely capable, technically proficient, as are you, as of many people watching you, of downloading cracked and pirated movies, games, videos, etc. It's not hard. The internet, it's all over the internet. The reality is I buy my media because if they make it easy enough for me, like I buy most of my movies and TV shows on Amazon Prime Video. And we have an Amazon Firebox on our TV, and we have a voice-activated remote. I can just press the button and say whatever, and it comes up, and I press the button, it plays, and I never have to think about it. So long as they make it easy for me to give the money, I will. But when they do crap like this, all they're saying is, don't give us money, wait for the cracked version, you'll get better performance.
Yeah, and that's what I was starting to say, is that I would like to actually test that. Before they pull Denuvo DRM, if that's something they decide to do, if people would want to see, as you can let me know in the chat, should I pirate Prey, being that I already own it, I paid for the game, I own the game, should I pirate Prey and test the pirated version against the non-pirated version for game performance to see if there's a difference in frame rate, knowing that the only difference there would be that one has Denuvo DRM and the other doesn't?
I wouldn't make a video about it.
Why not?
Because if they decide to complain to YouTube, that would be far worse than a copyright strike.
Well, I think there is, you're right, there are rules in place with YouTube partnership as far as embracing piracy, but I would definitely make it very clear in the video that the point of the video is to not be pro-piracy, it's to be anti-DRM.
I would ask permission.
You know, I do have a manager. I'll just ask him. That's what he's there for.
I would ask. Here's the thing. I've been asked many times to make a Hackintosh video, because there's guides all over the web. I mean, people talk about that. You know, why don't I make videos on how to put Mac OS on PCs? And my answer has always been, I'll never do that. Why? Because it's illegal. Oh man, whatever. Look, what you do in your own home. I mean, Apple's never going to sue you individually. What you do in the privacy of your own home, frankly, is your own business. I'm not your daddy. I'm not going to make a video about it, because it is, in fact, a violation of the end-user license agreement. And it's entirely possible that even though you own a copy of the game, I mean, I haven't read it. I mean, who reads, EULAs? But it's entirely possible it says you won't use this program without the copy protection intact. So actually, by using the legal copy, you may have agreed to not do exactly what you just... See what I'm saying?
Yeah, yes, no, you're right. I just was talking to one of my friends earlier about this, and he's very knowledgeable about this area, for reasons I won't go into. But I was basically, I was saying the same thing. I was just like, well, there could be some rules in effect that maybe I'm not breaking the law, but it could be breaking an agreement or something like that to not modify the program or something like that, from its original version. Things like that could be in place.
I do know, for example, I did look into it on Apple regarding their OS X license. If you buy a Mac or even buy an older, if you get a copy, you say, well, I bought a Mac, I, own the copy. They actually have verbiage in their end user license agreement that says you won't run this on non-Apple computers. So even paying for a copy isn't a solution because they specifically disallow it. So if you do it, why bother paying for a copy? It's the same thing. You might as because the license is void if you do that. Very
true. Well,
all I know is they all have better lawyers than I do.
Yeah, it's probably not worth it to do the video on. I mean, if I run the test, for my own self, and I see something really drastic, then I might not be able to stop myself from making a video. I just might not show gameplay or something. I don't know. But it'll be
you heard from a rumor on the web.
Yeah. If there is such a drastic difference in performance that I feel like it needs to be covered in a video, then I probably will. But I have a feeling it's not going to be that far apart, probably within the margin of error. But I would actually enjoy being proven wrong on that. If I boot that up on a cracked version and I'm getting like 30 FPS more than a non-cracked version, I'm going to be pissed off.
You're familiar with GOG? Good old games.
Yes.
Okay. They sell tons of games, all of which are DRM free. Yet people keep buying games.
And actually, that's actually a good... I don't think you were going to go there with this, but I could test a purchased copy of Witcher 3 on Steam versus theirs, because one has DRM and the other doesn't. Kind of. Well, one has Steam DRM. That's not the same.
Yeah. All I know is this. The people who are gonna download it for free probably weren't going to buy it, and the people who are okay to buy it, I am of the opinion, and I could be completely wrong. I mean, I haven't done surveys and research studies. I don't have a PhD in this, but I'm of the belief that most people want to reward creators for their hard work if they are able. Now, if you're a poor, 14-year-old kid in some rural third world country and you have no money at all, you were never going to be a customer anyway. I mean, okay, fine, you download it. Yes, it's technically a crime, but it's not like the company lost anything. They really didn't. You and I can afford to buy these games, and I do. I mean, for example, Mass Effect Andromeda. I bought Mass Effect Andromeda on launch day, and I know how to get a copy of that. But why? I mean, if we all did that, then we wouldn't have any more games to play. If you can afford it, you should buy it. That's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't, well, that's between you and yourself.
Yep. All right. So
I just think DRM is dumb because I just think it doesn't actually stop people from pirating, as this article points out.
No, I agree. And there's been studies that show that piracy actually usually drives sales, and the people that pirate stuff are more likely to purchase media than people that don't. That don't pirate, I should say.
Treat your customers with kindness and respect, and you will have loyal followers. I mean, just treat people Not like Criminals.
So this next one is about Castlevania. This is actually a fan-made game by Mig Perez. He led the team behind this, and it's very much in the vein of the original Castlevania games. So if you are a fan of those side-scrolling Castlevanias, this is actually available now for free, and it looks... I haven't played it yet. I just saw this video earlier in the article today on DSOG, but it really does look like the original games as I'm trying to get the video to play. There it is. I'll zoom this out here so people can see it a little bit more. Here we go. So, yeah, I mean, it looks totally like one of the original Castlevania games. It's fluid 60 FPS, which is always nice. So, yeah, it looks pretty darn good. I will give this a try. I love the original Castlevania games, especially the first two. Were you fans of these games back in the day?
I was not. I never played them. I was just thinking about whether or not these guys even asked permission to use the Castlevania name, because even though they're giving it away for free, how many instances of companies have cracked down, without getting permission? Which is a shame, because companies should understand that people who make stuff like this are the most rabid fans of the world. They should embrace them.
Especially this
company.
company.
Can you tell that I'm on a little bit of a consumer-friendly kick at the moment with large companies that don't realize that their customers are the most valuable thing they have?
Yeah, and especially with this publisher, because this would be Konami. And Konami, I remember they issued a cease and desist order against a modder who was just creating one level in the original Metal Gear Solid on Unreal Engine 4 just for shits and giggles to see if he could. And, they put out a cease and desist order saying you have to stop posting this content.
The right way to handle it is how ID Software and Valve handled it when the modders came out with Counter-Strike for the original Half-Life. Valve didn't sue them into oblivion. Not only did they support them, but they ended up buying it. ID Software, do you really think Doom would have had the lasting influence it had had if all those modders hadn't been able to create all those custom levels and all those complete redos that they did over the years? Mm-hmm. I don't know if you were into the scene or if you played Doom back in the day, but there was an endless amount of levels created by fans and complete mods of the game. What if they'd all been sued into oblivion?
Yeah, and that's how the developers wanted it, because they originally made it, it was freeware, which is what this is. This is freeware. And they just made it available to people, to try out the first couple levels, and then you had to pay for the rest. But there were, like you were saying, countless modded levels that people made on their own and then put up on these early servers for Doom players.
I was Konami, I would be looking at this, and I'd want to talk to these people, and I'd want to see what is their download rate, what is their play rate, because what this my entrepreneurial brain goes, is there a business opportunity? Could we work with these people to create a packaged product or something that could be sold on Steam? Or maybe it's worth making a new game using these assets, and we could pay them a percentage if we use their art. Think of the time we'd save using their art, and they could get some money, and we could make a new game and sell it, and we'll all make money.
I don't think Japanese publishers work like that. I don't think they have the same mindset as Western companies.
That's how my brain works.
Just seeing how Konami, especially Konami, though. Konami is like one of the worst. Like, they are awful. Like, they are really awful. Like, they took all of their most treasured licenses and turned them into pachinko slot machines in Japan, which are basically like slot machines for, like, porn houses. So that's what they think.
Do you at least like my idea?
Yes. Yes, I do. I think that's exactly what they should do. I think if they were, consumer friendly at all, and had any idea of how modern marketing research works, then they should do that and look at that, because if this is getting a bunch of hits and people are wanting to play this type of game, and development cost on something like this would be relatively cheap, they could probably crank out a bunch of these titles with side-scrolling action like this.
Well, not only cheap, but these fans have already done a lot of the art.
Yeah, and they didn't rip any of these assets also, they pointed out. They didn't rip any assets from the original Castlevania, so maybe that might be why they're covered. But the naming should, I would think, be an issue. But they didn't rip any assets from the original games. They created all these assets themselves from the ground up.
Yeah, but just making it yourself, if you've essentially copied the original, it doesn't matter that you drew it yourself. Copyright and trademarks would still cover it. I just think that too many large companies hold Disney, I'm looking at you, hold so tightly onto their copyrights as if it's like the goose that laid the golden egg. They forget that ultimately all of this intellectual property, it's written right into the Constitution. In fact, it's in the UN. It all belongs to all of us. They only get care of it for a brief period. It's supposed to be a brief period of time. But ultimately, all the art, all the things in the world, from Beethoven and paintings and music, is all ultimately supposed to be owned by all of us for the greater benefit of mankind. They just get a limited period of time to make money with it exclusively to compensate the creator. Mickey Mouse, we're looking at you. That's why, I guess, that's why my attitude is different, because I look at it as these fans are so devoted. Maybe we should make them part of the creation of more of this content, because it really belongs to all of us.
Yeah, and that's how you would get passionate employees who are truly passionate about what they're working on and creating, and you would have better employees for it, better company for it. But yeah, that's Konami in a nutshell.
Maybe that's why I don't own a big corporation, because you can't do it without everyone's help.
I agree. So up next, our last gaming topic here, Ubisoft has started to tease out a few new titles. They've been kind of quiet recently, with especially Assassin's Creed. They took a bit of a break from that. I actually just started playing through Assassin's Creed Syndicate the other day, which now finally runs really well on a 1080 Ti.
That game is beautiful, but it treats graphics cards like...
The 1080 Ti, I have everything maxed out. MSAA 2 times, not 4 times. But other than that, everything else maxed out, and I never go below 60 frames. But it took me like a year to get a graphics card that can do that. So
at 1080p or 1440p?
1440. And it runs like butter. And the game's, like you said, it's beautiful. It's a gorgeous game. I've been really enjoying it so far. But they teased out a new Assassin's Creed game. The Assassin's Creed Twitter said, "Sharpen your blade. The assassins will soon step out of the shadows." So take from that what you will. We're probably getting a new Assassin's Creed soon. And then also the other Ubisoft Twitters for Far Cry tweeted out something about Far Cry 5 and The Crew 2. Also, so some of our, or maybe not so favorite games from Ubisoft will be coming back with more titles.
Have you played The Crew? The first one?
Barely. I'm not really much of a racing game person.
How about Far Cry? Did you play Far Cry 4?
I played and beat Far Cry 3. I absolutely loved Far Cry 2. I didn't like Far Cry 4 because it really felt like Ubisoft hit like a formula on Far Cry 3 that they were like, oh, people really like this, so we're just going to do the exact same thing again. It's just the same thing like they did with Assassin's Creed, so that kind of pushed me away from it. I was just like, are they just going to do this over and over again now, and every Far Cry game is just going to be first-person Assassin's Creed, climbing towers and unlocking areas? And if that's the case, then count me out, because that is a far cry from where they started. Yeah, the puns are heavy and thick today in the air, just like the humidity.
Here's the only problem. We already have Far Cry 5. It's called Ghost Recon Wildlands.
Very true.
I will say that I tried Far Cry 4. I never played 3 or 2. I tried Far Cry 4. I've actually benchmarked Far Cry 4 a couple times last year. Didn't get into it. Didn't do a lot for me. Ghost Recon Wildlands I have been enjoying. And it's probably too much because, in fact, I just published a video about it this morning. It just seems to be the right combination of factors. And if Far Cry 5 is at all like that, then I'll definitely take a look at it. I
want them to go back to like Far Cry 2. I want to be dying from malaria, and I want my guns to break.
Is that what it was in Far Cry 2?
Yeah, at the beginning of the game, you contract malaria, so during the game, you're constantly fighting the... Actually, this is one of the worst elements of that game, so that's kind of an inside joke for people that played it, but you get malaria from the onset of the game, so frequently throughout the game, you'll like get notifications saying, okay, you're about to die from malaria, you need to go get your next dose of malaria medication ASAP. So,
malaria medication.
But yeah, anyway, besides that element, which a lot of people will complain about, Far Cry 2 I thought was the best Far Cry title out of all of them. The combat was fun. I just enjoyed all of it. It actually like involved planning and a little bit of strategy with certain things, whereas Far Cry 3 is very kind of open world Ubisoft paint by numbers. Nothing really surprised me with Far Cry 3, but I still enjoyed it enough to play it. But if they're just going to keep on doing that with every single Far Cry game, which they've already done with Far Cry 4, they did it with Far Cry Primal, I have to assume Far Cry 5 is going to be the exact same thing, just a different setting. Which that'd be disappointing as an original fan of the series. But yeah, people are saying in the chat, yeah, Far Cry 4 was born. We got to play as Ajay Gully. That was the best thing about that name, was that guy's name. I love when he would get on the radio, like, Ajay Gully, we need you. What are you doing?
Speaking of Assassin's Creed, the only sad thing I'll say, and this has nothing to do with the announcement except sort of, is it's kind of a bummer that the crossover movies that they've made off of video games lately have done so poorly, like the Assassin's Creed movie, which really did nothing at all. And then we had the, the Max Payne movie, which didn't do anything. And they keep trying to make movies out of video games, and they keep doing terrible. Yes or no to a Mass Effect movie?
I don't see that going down well. I mean, hey, if they could pull it off and make an amazing space film, go for it. I don't care what license you use to accomplish that. I love space movies. But I just see them trying to basically shoehorn in elements as basically as fan service to make it like a Mass Effect thing, but it'll probably have nothing to do with Mass Effect. Like, I wouldn't even be surprised if it had like literally nothing to do with the Mass Effect relay itself. It just made a space movie and put Mass Effect on the title.
Or worse, they'll try to shoehorn in the game mechanics that don't really belong in a movie.
Or like first-person shooter games turn into movies, so obviously we have to have a first-person shooter cam inside of a movie. It's like, ugh, cringe.
Like
much.
Doom?
Yeah, or that other one was Hardcore Henry. God, that was just... First-person in movies is seriously cringy. It's just like... Ugh. It's like...
Would any of these video games make better movies if they were animated rather than live action?
I have seen a lot of animated game movies that I like. The Dead Space ones were actually quite good.
Were they?
Yeah. Dead Space animated films were good. I like those. Also, what was the other one?
Well, because if you did them animated, you could use the same voices from the video game, whereas if you do them live action, you can't.
Yeah. Speaking of movies, Pirates of the Caribbean being held for ransom. Looks like I don't know if this is the same hackers or not, but they had hacked recently. Did we talk about that with Orange is the New Black? Where they had, I'm not sure if we talked about it in the show or not. We might not have. But basically,
I've slept since then.
Yeah, basically a group known as the Dark Overlords, nod to Howard the Duck. They had pirated the entire new season of Orange is the New Black, and they held it for ransom for Netflix, which they didn't pay out. And now, just like a week later, the exact same thing is happening again, although this time Disney is the target, where hackers have Pirates of the Caribbean, and they've said, hey, pay us X amount of dollars, which they haven't said what it is publicly. Disney's not really releasing any details about it, and they're not going to pay them. So I guess we'll get to watch Pirates of the Caribbean sooner, if we pirate, that is. If you're the type of person that pirates stuff, then you'll get to watch Pirates of the Caribbean sooner.
There's no jokes to be made there.
None. No, this is 100% literal face I'm making right here. There's no subjectivity to this at all.
Somebody pirated the Pirates movie.
Yes, Pirates pirated the Pirates movie. Yep.
Say that 5 times fast.
I can't. I wrote it in the description for the title of the story, and I got confused halfway through. I had to check it.
I wouldn't pay them either, because they're gonna first of all, paying them doesn't guarantee. It's not like a physical thing that can be returned that they don't have anymore. Second of all, Pirates of the Caribbean is an event. You go see it on the big screen because it's epic on the 80-foot screen. It's epic with your popcorn and your soda pop and the huge sound system. Getting a ripped copy and watching it on your computer is not the same thing.
Well, no, not to split hairs, but this particular Pirates of the Caribbean, I watched one of the scenes that they had, put out early on, like one of the teaser scenes or whatever, like a 5-minute scene of the movie. And I thought it looked awful. Like, it looked really cheaply made. Like, Johnny Depp's accent in this was awful. It looked like he had no interest in being there because, well, we know for a fact that he didn't. Like, he didn't want to make this movie. He basically made it to pay for his divorce. And it looks like it in the movie. Like, this is one I wasn't going to rush out to Cinemas to see anyway, so you're not going to be breaking my heart if they release it online for people to watch for free. But yeah, I agree with you though that Disney should definitely not pay up. None of these movie studios should pay up because the same reason that the countries don't negotiate with terrorists, because the moment you do negotiate with them, it gives them a reason to do it again. So these hackers, which seem to be motivated by money rather than just the fame of being able to do this and being malicious to a movie studio, it seems like they actually want to make money. So if you don't give them any incentive to make money from it, then why would they keep doing it?
Yeah. And it's not like, as soon as the digital drives go out to the movie theaters, it's going to be ripped from, somebody working in a movie theater somewhere is going to get one of these drives and is immediately going to make a copy of it and share it with his friends anyway. So it's not like it's not going to be digitally available the day it ends up in theaters anyway. So what exactly are they demanding? A couple of weeks of, I guess, not having that happen, I suppose?
Yeah, and the people that would be that in tune with piracy anyway are the type of people that would pirate every day. And they're the type of people that would have pirated the movie anyway, no matter what. It's the same thing before we said with Denuvo. It's like the people that were going to pirate it were always going to pirate it. This is just allowing them to do it sooner. They weren't going to go pay $15 to go to the movies or $20 for a 3D movie to go see it. So Disney's probably not losing out all that much.
No, and big. You mentioned that you didn't seem very excited about this, and that's fine. But if you were. If this, for example, let's say that this was the next Star Wars film, The Last Jedi, and
that was
there
my
was
thinking.
I'm sorry?
I was thinking about that earlier, I was going to say.
Here's the deal. I'm going to go see The Last Jedi in the theater because I want to see it on the 80-foot screen. Even if you told me I could download it and watch it on my computer tomorrow, it's an experience. I went and saw Rogue One in the theater for the same reason. It's an experience. It's fun. You take your kids, your older kids, and you enjoy it. Disney makes money because they clearly are short of it, and that's fine. But I don't know.
I'm not sure if Last Jedi got released now. I don't know if I could wait till December. But if it was like only a week before, like this, I could probably hold out. But knowing that there was a full unreleased Star Wars film just sitting there this early, I'd be like, "Ooh, I gotta kind of
maybe find
a friend to download that and play it on his TV for me."
First of all, it's not finished yet, so you couldn't. There's still an edit and all that at the moment. But putting that issue aside, I haven't even watched the first Last Jedi trailer yet. I don't want to be spoiled. The trailers give away. Well, actually, I take that back. The Rogue One trailers didn't give anything away because the trailers weren't the movie. But putting that issue aside,
yeah, they did a very good job with not revealing what the whole plot was with Rogue One.
Whatever happened to just going, oh, there's a new Star Wars movie, let's go see it. What's it about? I don't know. Lightsabers and cool stuff.
All right, well, I think that's all I got on the piracy and everything for today. And
a lot of pirate stuff today. What is it with pirates? They need to walk the plank.
Yeah, they do. And also, and even Star Wars, there's pirates in that too.
I personally draw a huge distinction regarding pirates. There's a big, or regarding, like hackers. Hackers who get information and release it for free because of a social belief in their goodness is one thing. These people just want money. These are just ransomers.
Yep.
I have no sympathy for these people. These people are totally self-interested. You know, hackers that like find out about illegal behavior and release that, I consider to be very different than the hackers that are trying to make money, for what it's worth.
No, yeah, I would agree with that as well. There's different type of people for sure. Different goals, different mindsets.
One of them is doing it for the benefit of society. The other's doing it for the benefit of themselves.
For sure.
I don't know.
That's all right. Well, I think we're...
Disney will be fine either way.
Yep, I'm sure. Disney's printing money right now with all their licenses. But thank you for everyone for watching this week on TGW. We'll be back again next week, same time and everything like that. And thank you for Tech Deals once again for joining me. And don't forget to check out his channel. I always link it down in the description below on these videos. If you want to pick up that Cooler Master liquid cooler that he showed at the start of the stream, I did link to it over on Amazon for $100. 280 millimeter water cooler, very good. I've used it and tested it, and it was fantastic. I have a full video on that actually, if you want to check it out. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get out of here. So we'll catch you guys next week. Ta-ra.
Thank you.